Hello and welcome to Clarinet Ninja. Today we're going to talk about reed strength. When's the right time to move up a strength? When have you gone too far? When are you going to go back? And why? For clarification purposes, I'm playing this all on my standard setup. I'm going to play number 2 reed, number 2.5, number 3, number 3.5, and a number 4. It's 5, but you know what I mean. 5 different reeds. And we're going to see for what reason you might learn that it's time for you to switch reeds. Either going up or going down, depending on where you are. My recommendation is to start off, if you're just getting going, everyone, in my opinion, should start on a number 2 reed. The resistance is different on different companies' reeds, but it's all in the ballpark. So when you have a number 2 reed, you're playing, you're doing your thing, you're learning how to play the clarinet, you're building your muscles in your embouchure, you're building your ability to support it with your air. Number 2 reed is just fine. It's going to play all the notes. You'll be able to voice the mouthpiece properly. You get basically a C out of it without too much trouble. You'll be able to do my overtone exercise where we play like a low C, go up to a G, let the register key go, see if it stays. It stays. So we can play lots of notes on a number 2 reed and do it just fine. Let me show you where it gets a little bit challenging. I'm going to put the tuner representing each different strength reed as I play a C scale, so that you can hear where the pitch gets a little bit weird with the softer reeds on my setup. So we can see when we listen to that and look at that, that on my setup, if I try and play a high G, by the way, I used all the same fingerings on all those examples, it doesn't even come out as a G. It's like a half step too low. You know, we clearly can't be using a number 2 reed, at least on this mouthpiece, and play a high G. Now, there are people that I know that are great jazz players that play a different style than I play, that use a setup that a number 2 reed is actually probably the best thing for them. I'm speaking from the standpoint of somebody who's playing classical music, or at least music that comes from a classical style, and that music requires a mouthpiece, I think, similar to what I'm playing. I made a whole mouthpiece video. Check it out. Made 2 of them. Check them both out. I'll link them at the end, or down in the description at least. In any case, to get that sound, there's a certain amount of resistance required. How much? Why? Let's figure it out. But here's the thing. There are certain range considerations. So if you are trying to play a high G and you're learning how to play the clarinet, it's going to be real fishy, to use a technical term, on a softer reed. It's going to not slot in exactly right. It's not going to give you what you need. The clarinet's going to respond a little bit differently than it should. And that's what we're going to get into now. So that's the objective. Now let's get into the subjective, which is, how does it feel? And what does the clarinet do? And how does the clarinet respond? We're going to use the opening of the Weber Concertino to determine why it is that we might want to go up a strength or down a strength in our reeds. What is the clarinet doing? Why is it doing it? And what can we do to make it different? Because this has just a little bit of articulation, but a lot of sound, a lot of different registers, and a lot of different volumes. And the clarinet's going to show us what it wants to do with these different reeds and what it will do with these different reeds. Let's check it out. Here's number 2 reed. all the notes come out, but I'm pretty uncomfortable with how they are coming out. Why is that? Because each register of the instrument sounds completely different from one another. When I play loud, the sound goes crazy. And when I play soft, it's hard to control. It gets a little wobbly. This is a challenge. And everything just sounds like it's coming apart a little bit. Let's see what it sounds like on number 2.5. Now on this 2.5 read, it's definitely a step in the right direction. I feel a little bit more in control of all the things that I want to control. I do feel like I still really hear. I have to work to make those notes sound the same. I mean, I can do it, but I'm having to move my mouth around a lot internally in order to make that happen. Where's another good example? It's dicey for me to get the evenness in between the registers. The pitch is coming along. It's still not there yet, but the resistance is very, very uneven because when we don't have enough resistance up here, the resistance of the clarinet and how long a note is, meaning how much of this tube does it use. If we're playing, let's say, an F in the upper register, top line, the tube goes to here. But if we're playing an F in the first space, the tube only goes to here. There's better. And that means those notes are going to have a different amount of air vibrating inside the instrument, and that impacts how the clarinet feels, which means the lack of resistance here means the point that we're blowing against is more likely to be influenced by that change in air column. Let's see how number 3 read feels. This strikes me as a relatively resistant version of a number 3 reed, but what I am hearing is that the instrument is sounding more congruous in between registers, which is what I am looking for. I want to play with as little changing in my embouchure and my voicing as I can, and the more appropriate the reed strength, the better off that is for me. When somebody's playing jazz and they need more flexibility in their sound, these are not the same set of priorities that I would be looking for. So keep that in mind. This is, again, from the perspective of somebody who is playing either straight up classical music or commercial music that is basically from sound-wise a classical style. Phrasing, articulation different. But I don't play a lot of jazz, and if I were to do it, I would not be playing the same reed. So keep that in mind. This is just a comparison to see what these different reeds do. If you want more flexibility, you got to go down in the reed strength. This is going to give you a fuzzier sound, going to give you more resistance, and lock you into a certain place. Let's try a 3.5. Now that's getting right in the ballpark for me. This is a strangely resistant 3.5 too. These are all blue box reeds. I don't normally play on blue box reeds, but it's what I'm using for this example, because it doesn't matter. What I'm trying to do is show what the differences between the strengths are going to do. You choose what it is that you want to do with it, or where that relative strength is. Now for a number 4 reed. That extra resistance to push against is showing what I want to show you, which is register changes more even because there's more resistance loaded up right here. And it is less susceptible to the register changes in the clarinet, meaning the length of the tube where it fits in the instrument. And that's an important thing to me because I want to keep the same general tone quality unless I decide to change it. I don't want the clarinet changing it for me, which is why I've landed where I've landed. And this is, I'm not going to lie, hard work. I've tied my shoe very tightly here, and I like to play that way. I wouldn't ever suggest moving more than a number 4, 4.5, 5. I know one player that plays on number 5 reeds, and he is incredible. I'm not sure how he's doing it. I don't get it, but it's fantastic. My suggestion is if you need to play harder than a number 4 reed, maybe putting that extra resistance in your mouthpiece is a more balanced way to go about it. What we are trying to find here is balance in how we're playing the clarinet. So the resistance is cooperative instead of oppositional, right? We don't want it to be uncomfortable, fuzzy. We want to be able to push harder and keep our sound focused and keep our sound in the same color palette that we already had it. And again, if you're playing jazz, this would be totally wrong. This is not the right reed for you. This is not the right concept. You would need to then go back down in the reeds. I want to highlight how much different a certain part of this sounds. I'm going to use the extremes. I'm going to use this number 4, then I'm going to use the number 2. Play the same thing. That feels like I've got control over it. I'm going to go to number 2, and we're going to see what the limitations are. Because if I blow the same way on this number 2 that I played the number 4, the sound goes bananas. The register changes are completely telegraphed through the tone. I don't want that. I can't have that. That would drive me crazy. In order to work that out, I would have to limit the dynamic range and hope for the best. But that's still it's a little out of control. The other place that I notice most prominently, actually, is in the trill section. Oh, yeah. If I play that at any dynamic, any more than a mezzo piano, let's see if I try it at a mezzo piano. That sounds much better, but I don't want to have my dynamics limited in that way. And that's the balancing act we're trying to figure out. Like, how is it that you play, and what is it that you're trying to get out of your reed mouthpiece combination? Let me put on that number 4 reed so we can hear how that exact thing sounds with a more appropriately strength reed for me. Still don't love it, but that's me, not the reed this time. But that's what it's gonna give you. Like going in between the hands, whether this trill's F sharp to G, G sharp to A, going right in between our 2 hands, there can be a major color shift that can, for me, get really out of control if my reed is not giving me enough resistance and evening that out for me. So that's pretty much what I wanted to show you today. And it's not to tell you what strength reed you should play. I have no idea. I can tell you that a less resistant reed is going to give you a cleaner sound with less fuzz. It's going to be a little bit brighter, going to be more focused, but it's also going to be limiting in terms of dynamics. And it's going to show the different registers of the clarinet in a way that you may or may not like. It depends on what we're listening for. The more resistant reed is going to even things out because it's putting a significant resistance right up here on top. That's going to make the differences in the clarinet less. But if you're not careful, if you're not ready for it, it will give you a fuzzy sound and an unfocused sound that is not really what we're looking for. It'll be darker, but you have to work harder for the other things. And that's the balancing act of choosing the right reed. Hope this was helpful. I'll put some videos around here at the end. Maybe you can click on something that'll help you. And I'll see you next time.